Aaron stepped off the transport shuttle, feeling the hum of energy beneath his feet. The city stretched before him like a sparkling jewel, taller, brighter, and stranger than he remembered. It had been decades since he had last seen Earth, decades since he had promised a young girl named Lyra that he would marry her someday. Now he was back, older, stronger, but unsure if anything could remain the same. The shuttle had glided silently over the cityscape, giving him a view of silver towers, floating walkways, and rivers that shone with soft blue light. Everything was clean, organized, and alive with energy. It was beautiful, yes, but it was not the Earth he had left. Aaron felt a pang of nostalgia for the streets he once ran along, for the trees that had shaded his childhood, and for the girl whose hand he had once held under those same trees. He adjusted his travel coat and stepped into the bustling streets. People moved with purpose, many wearing clothes and devices that he barely recognized. Autonomous vehicles glided along magnetic tracks and holographic signs floated above buildings, displaying news, advertisements, and messages that seemed almost alive. Aaron could not help but feel like a stranger in a land he had once called home. He walked slowly, letting his eyes take in the wonders around him. It had been a long journey from the colony world, and he had spent years learning to survive among the stars. Now standing here, he wondered if he had changed too much. Could a promise made so long ago still hold meaning in this world of progress and change? His thoughts kept returning to Lyra. He remembered the summer day when they had made the promise. They had been just children, playing in the sunlight, hiding behind trees, and laughing at the smallest things. "We will marry one day," he had said, his eyes serious for someone so young. Lyra had smiled, her cheeks flushed, and had nodded without hesitation. At the time, it was a game, a sweet and innocent vow. But for Aaron, it had always been real. Now, decades later, the memory felt fragile, like a glass figurine that could shatter with a single misstep. He did not know if Lyra remembered. He did not know if she had kept a place in her heart for him. And yet, the thought of finding her, of seeing her again, gave him hope and fear in equal measure. He reached the building where Lyra worked. It was massive, sleek, and filled with light. A banner outside announced the latest breakthroughs in interstellar energy research. Aaron paused, taking a deep breath before entering. He had not contacted her yet. He wanted the first meeting to be honest, face-to-face, without interference from others. Inside, the building was alive with activity. Scientists moved through corridors with tablets and devices, discussing complex theories and experiments. Robots hummed quietly as they transported equipment. Aaron felt a sense of awe and wonder. This world had grown so far beyond his childhood imagination. He realized how much humans were capable of, and a part of him smiled at the resilience and brilliance of his species. Finally, he reached her lab. He hesitated at the doorway, unsure how to introduce himself after so many years. And then he saw her. Lyra was bent over a workstation, focused on a complex device that glowed softly in her hands. Her hair was longer than he remembered, and her eyes carried a confidence and sharpness that came with experience. For a moment, she did not notice him. Aaron stepped forward, his heart pounding. "Lyra," he said gently. She looked up sharply, her eyes widening in surprise. "Aaron?" Her voice was soft, almost disbelieving. She blinked as if trying to convince herself that he was real. "Is it really you?" "Yes," he said, feeling a rush of emotion. "I've come back. From the colony." She stood slowly, her expression a mixture of shock, curiosity, and something deeper he could not immediately identify. I didn't think I'd ever see you again." "I didn't think I would either," Aaron admitted. "But I had to come. There were things I wanted to tell you. Things that happened out there." Lyra studied him silently. She noticed the faint lines on his face, the strength in his posture, and the intensity in his eyes. He was not the boy she remembered. He was a man shaped by years of survival, exploration, and responsibility, and yet there was something familiar, something comforting in his presence. "Come," she said finally, stepping aside. "Let's talk somewhere quiet." They walked to a small observation deck overlooking the city. The sun was beginning to set, casting golden light over the towers and rivers. Aaron felt a strange mix of joy and sorrow. This was home, yes, but it was not the home of his memories. And yet, standing here with Lyra, he felt a connection that time and distance had not broken. "I've changed a lot," he began, choosing his words carefully. "The colony, it wasn't what I expected. There were dangers, struggles, and responsibilities I never imagined as a boy. But I never forgot you. I never forgot the promise we made. Lyra listened quietly, her eyes fixed on him. I remember, she said finally. I remember the promise. I wondered if it meant the same to you after all these years. It does, he said without hesitation. I don't know if the world is the same or if you are the same, but I had to see you again. I had to see if there was a chance. If what we promised could still exist. Lyra looked down, a soft smile playing at her lips. She thought of the boy who had once held her hand so firmly, of the summer days and dreams of the future. She also thought of the woman she had become, of her work, her achievements, and the life she had built without him. And yet, seeing him now, she felt the stirrings of something familiar, something that belonged to both of them. I don't know what the future holds, she said quietly. The world has changed, and so have we, but I'm willing to see where this goes. Aaron felt a rush of relief and happiness. It was not a simple reunion. There were questions, challenges, and uncertainties, but the connection they shared as children had not faded. It had grown into something deeper, shaped by years of experience and resilience. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the city, they stood together in silence. The lights of the metropolis shimmered like stars brought to Earth, reflecting the possibilities of a world that had changed, yet still held room for hope, love, and human courage. Aaron knew this was only the beginning. The colony had sent him back not just for himself, but for Earth, for Lyra, and for the promise that had tied them together decades ago. There would be challenges ahead, new technology, new threats, and new responsibilities, but he felt ready. He would face whatever came with Lyra by his side. For the first time in years, Aaron allowed himself to smile fully. The city was strange and unfamiliar, but it was also alive, full of potential. And more importantly, Lyra was here, standing beside him, a reminder that some promises, no matter how long forgotten or delayed, could still find their place in the world. He extended his hand gently. Shall we start again? Lyra looked at him, her eyes bright with curiosity, hope, and a hint of excitement. She placed her hand in his. Yes, she said. We'll start again. And as they looked out over the glowing city, the stars above and the lights below seemed to merge into one endless possibility. The past and the future met in this moment, and for Aaron it felt like coming home. The world had changed, but some things, courage, hope, and the bonds formed in childhood, remained eternal. And in that knowledge, Aaron felt ready to face whatever the new world would bring. The next morning, Aaron walked through the city streets again, letting the sights and sounds sink into him. Even after a night spent talking with Lyra, he felt a strange mix of excitement and unease. The world had changed in ways he could hardly understand. But one thing remained clear. Lyra was still the same heart he had known as a boy, yet transformed into someone far stronger and wiser. He reached the research center where Lyra worked. Today, she had invited him to see her lab and the projects she had been leading. Aaron followed her through sleek hallways lined with glass and polished metal. Every step reminded him how far humanity had come. Robots moved silently, assisting scientists with their experiments. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing graphs, simulations, and distant star systems. Aaron's eyes widened in awe, but he kept his focus on Lyra. Welcome to my world, Lyra said with a small smile, opening the door to a large lab filled with equipment he had never imagined as a child. This is where we try to push the limits of energy research, where Earth's future meets the stars. Aaron looked around, amazed. Machines hummed, lights flickered softly, and screens displayed data that danced in 3 dimensions. It was overwhelming, but he felt a thrill of curiosity he hadn't experienced since leaving the colony. You've done amazing things here, he said honestly. I never imagined. All of this. Lyra's smile softened. You've been away for decades. The world doesn't wait. We adapt, we grow, we move forward. She paused, looking at him seriously. But I'm glad you're here. I want to understand what happened to you, to hear your story. I want to see if the promise we made still matters. Aaron nodded. The words carried weight. He had spent years surviving, learning, and leading, yet the promise to Lyra had remained like a quiet star in his heart, guiding him even when the universe seemed vast and indifferent. I will tell you everything, he said. But first, show me what you've built. Lyra led him to a workstation where a small device floated above a magnetic field. Energy flowed through it in bright, shimmering patterns. "This is part of a system we're developing to harness interstellar energy," she explained. "It could provide limitless power to Earth and other colonies." Aaron leaned closer, studying the device. He had seen advanced technology on the colony, but this was different. The precision, the elegance, the sheer potential, it was breathtaking. "You've truly outdone yourself," he said. "I see why the world is so different now." Lyra blushed slightly but returned to her work. Aaron watched her for a moment, remembering the little girl who had once played under the trees, full of laughter and wonder. Now she was a woman of strength, intelligence, and vision, and yet there was something unchanged: her kindness, her determination, and the spark that had once captivated him. After hours of exploring the lab and discussing technology, Lyra and Aaron sat down in a quiet corner, sipping nutrient drinks that replaced breakfast. For a moment, silence hung between them, comfortable and reflective. "I want to know about your life," Lyra said gently. "The colony. What happened there?" Aaron hesitated. The memories were not easy. The colony had promised hope, adventure, and discovery, but it had also brought danger, responsibility, and loss. "It wasn't easy," he began. "There were challenges we couldn't predict, dangers that forced us to grow quickly. I learned a lot, sometimes more than I wanted to. And I survived, though not without cost." Lyra listened intently, her expression softening. "I can't imagine what that must have been like. But you came back. That counts for something." He looked at her, feeling the weight of years and distance melt slightly in her gaze. "I came back because I had to see you. Because the promise, the one we made as children, it never left me. And I needed to know if it mattered to you too." Lyra's eyes glistened, a mix of emotion and thoughtfulness. "It does," she admitted softly. "I don't think I realized how much I held on to it. The promise reminded me that life isn't only about progress, achievements, or survival. It's also about connection, trust, and remembering the people who shape us." "You shaped me, Aaron." He felt a rush of emotion, almost like stepping into sunlight after years of darkness. The boy who had made a simple vow was gone, but the man who honored it was here, and Lyra acknowledged him fully. For the next few days, Aaron stayed close to Lyra, learning about her work and the changes Earth had undergone. He met her colleagues, saw the city's floating farms, and witnessed the incredible technology that allowed humans to thrive. Everywhere he went, he felt a mix of admiration and slight intimidation. The world had grown far beyond what he remembered, but he also realized that humans had always had this capacity for adaptation, courage, and brilliance. Yet, amidst the wonder, tension lingered. Lyra's colleagues were polite, but some watched Aaron with cautious eyes. Rumors about outsiders, travelers from colonies, and potential threats floated in hushed conversations. Aaron sensed the unspoken questions. Who was he? What did he know? Could his return bring danger or opportunity? One evening, Lyra invited him to walk along the river that ran through the city, glowing with soft blue light. The air was crisp, filled with the hum of energy and distant voices. Aaron felt at peace here, yet a shadow of worry lingered. "Do you ever feel like we're being watched?" he asked quietly. Lyra nodded. "Sometimes. There are always eyes looking for advantage. Knowledge can be a weapon, Aaron, and you bring knowledge from the colony that many would want to control." He clenched his fists lightly, understanding the weight of her words. "I didn't come here for conflict," he said. "I came for you, and for the chance to keep the promise we made." She smiled softly. "I know, but we must be careful. The world has changed, and so have the stakes. Trust will be important, but so will caution." They walked in silence for a while, letting the city lights shimmer around them. The connection between them felt renewed, stronger than before, yet tempered by experience and the realities of the world. Aaron realized that winning Lyra's heart again would not be as simple as it had been in childhood, but he was willing to try. Later that night, as he gazed at the stars from a small balcony, Aaron remembered the boy he had been, the boy who had made a promise under sunlight and laughter. And he also saw the man he had become, hardened and wise, yet still capable of hope and love. Somewhere between these two selves, he felt the path forward with Lyra taking shape. The next day, Lyra invited him into a private lab to show him a new project she had been working on, a miniature interstellar communication device. She explained its mechanics with excitement, her eyes lighting up like a child's, and Aaron felt a thrill in seeing her passion. "You still have that spark," he said, smiling. The same one that made me promise to you all those years ago." Lyra laughed softly. "And you still have that stubbornness," she teased. "You never gave up, did you?" "No," he replied simply. "Because some promises are worth keeping, no matter how long it takes or how much the world changes." She studied him for a moment, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. "Perhaps some things are timeless," she said, "like courage, determination, and maybe even the bonds we form as children." Their eyes met, and for a moment the world outside seemed to fade. The towers, the lights, the advancements, they were all impressive, but none of it compared to the human connection between them. It was fragile, yes, and full of questions, but it was alive, vibrant, and real. As days turned into weeks, Aaron and Lyra spent more time together, both in the lab and outside. They walked through gardens that floated above the city, explored old parks that had survived modernization, and shared stories of their lives, triumphs, and fears. Each moment brought them closer, rekindling the bond of trust and affection that had begun decades ago under simple summer skies. Yet, amidst this reconnection, an undercurrent of tension remained. Aaron could feel it, subtle glances from officials, whispered conversations, and a sense that not everyone wanted him here. He knew that the promise they shared was now intertwined with responsibility, knowledge, and a world that was far more complicated than the one they had left behind. But for now, they ignored the shadows and focused on each other. They laughed, argued playfully, and discovered new sides of one another. Lyra marveled at Aaron's stories of the colony, his survival skills, and the challenges he had faced. Aaron admired Lyra's intellect, resilience, and her vision for a future where humans could thrive among the stars. And through it all, the promise lingered, no longer just a childish vow, but a thread connecting two lives across time, distance, and change. Aaron knew that the coming days would test them. He understood that the world had grown complex and that danger might follow him. But he also knew something stronger. Some bonds, some promises, and some connections are timeless, waiting only for the courage to recognize them again. He took a deep breath, looking at Lyra's determined face, and whispered silently to himself, "We will face it together." And in that moment, as the city glimmered around them and the stars shone above, both of them felt the first stirrings of a future where promises could survive, love could endure, and humanity could rise, even in a changed world. The days that followed brought Aaron deeper into Lyra's world. He marveled at the advancements of Earth, the floating gardens, the quiet hum of energy across the city, the way people lived in harmony with technology. And yet, there was a shadow creeping into their newfound connection, a tension that neither Lyra nor Aaron could ignore. It began with small things, glances from her colleagues that lingered too long, subtle whispers when they thought no one was listening, and messages that appeared on Lyra's tablet with warnings she did not immediately share. Aaron noticed these things, though he tried not to let them disturb their reunion. One evening, as they walked along the city's illuminated river, Aaron finally asked, "Lyra, is something wrong?" She hesitated, then sighed. "There's someone watching, Aaron. Someone from a government group. They call themselves the Observation Council. They monitor unusual arrivals from colonies. You fall into that category." Aaron's heart sank. "Monitoring? Why?" "Because knowledge is power," she said softly. "And the things you know from your colony, well, some people believe it could change the balance of our world. For good or for ill, they aren't sure." Aaron nodded, understanding immediately. On the colony, he had learned technologies and strategies that had not yet reached Earth. They had been vital to survival, but in the wrong hands, they could be dangerous. He had always feared this day, returning to a world that had moved on only to discover that his past might threaten the present. Lyra took his hand gently. "We'll be careful," she promised. "But you must tell me everything, Aaron. If we are to face this together, there can be no secrets between us." And so, for the first time in decades, Aaron spoke fully of his life on the colony. He told her about the struggles they faced to survive, the rogue AI that had threatened to destroy their settlement, the hidden knowledge he had preserved, and the people he had lost along the way. His voice trembled sometimes, but Lyra listened without interruption, absorbing each word. When he finished, silence hung between them. Lyra's eyes were wide with a mixture of astonishment and concern. "All of this? It's incredible, Aaron, and terrifying. I see now why some might want to control it." He nodded. I didn't come here for power. I came for you. But I also came to warn Earth in case anything from the colony's past catches up with us. Lyra held his hand tighter. Then we face it together, she said firmly. You've survived the colony. Now you can help us survive whatever comes next. For a few days they worked in the lab, combining Earth's advanced technology with Aaron's knowledge from the colony. They experimented with energy systems, communication devices, and security protocols. Each experiment strengthened their trust and partnership, but the presence of unseen observers added a constant tension. Then came the first direct warning. A small device appeared on Lyra's workstation, projecting a holographic message. The words were simple, cold, and firm. We are aware of the outsider. Do not share forbidden knowledge. You are being monitored. Lyra frowned, her fingers hovering over the controls. They are serious, she said. This isn't just observation. They want control. They want information. Aaron's jaw tightened. Then we must be smart. We cannot let them take what we've learned, but we also cannot make a mistake that puts anyone in danger. Over the next few days, their efforts became more clandestine. They worked in secret, developing secure systems to protect the knowledge Aaron had brought. At night, they walked the city discussing strategies, risks, and the possibility of a future together. Every conversation reminded them of the promise they had made as children, now grown into something deeper, a bond strengthened by time, experience, and trust. Yet, danger was not idle. One afternoon, a group of agents arrived at the research center under the guise of inspection. Lyra quickly guided Aaron to a safe room, locking the door behind them. Outside, they could hear voices and footsteps moving through the lab. They are looking for you, Lyra whispered. We cannot let them find the colony data you brought. Aaron clenched his fists. Then we make them leave empty-handed. He scanned the room, noting the security measures and tools at their disposal. We have one chance to protect this. Are you ready? Lyra nodded, her eyes fierce with determination. I've faced challenges before, Aaron. We can do this together. Using a combination of quick thinking, holographic decoys, and encrypted communication, they managed to mislead the agents. The intruders left believing the sensitive data had been secured, unaware that Aaron had transferred the most critical files to a hidden device. It was a narrow escape, but it reinforced the reality of their situation. The past Aaron carried was now part of a larger world, and it had the power to attract both allies and enemies. That evening, after the agents had left, Aaron and Lyra sat in silence, exhausted but relieved. Aaron took her hand, feeling the warmth and strength that had never faded. We survived, he said softly. Lyra smiled faintly. We did, and we will continue to survive, as long as we face this together. Their conversation turned back to lighter memories, childhood games, shared dreams, and the promise that had brought them here. Aaron laughed at a story Lyra told about a secret hideout they had created as children, and Lyra blushed at his teasing about her stubbornness. These moments reminded them of the simple bond that had endured, even as the world around them grew more complicated. But beneath the laughter, both knew that danger was real and growing. The Observation Council was not the only threat. Whispers of rival factions, corporate interests, and rogue scientists had begun to surface. Aaron realized that his return was not just a personal journey. It was a mission, a responsibility to protect knowledge, people, and the promise that tied him to Lyra. One night, as they looked out over the glowing city from a high balcony, Lyra turned to him. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't returned? She asked. Aaron took a deep breath. Every day, he admitted. I wondered if you would forget, if the promise would fade, if I would fade with it. But now, I see that some things cannot be erased. Some bonds survive time, distance, and change. I hope we can honor ours no matter what comes. Lyra's eyes glistened with emotion. I hope so too, Aaron, but we must be careful. The world we live in now, it is not the world of our childhood. We need to be wise, brave, and united. He nodded, feeling the weight of her words. They had rekindled the past, but the future demanded courage. Together they would face it, using their combined knowledge, skills, and trust to navigate the challenges ahead. The following week, they discovered that the Observation Council was not acting alone. A rival faction interested in harnessing the colony's technology for profit had begun to make moves in the shadows. This realization brought urgency. Aaron and Lyra worked tirelessly, developing defensive measures, sharing knowledge discreetly, and preparing for a confrontation they could not yet predict. In the quiet moments, when the lab hummed softly and the city lights shimmered, Aaron would look at Lyra and remember the boyhood promise. It had survived, but it was no longer simple. It had grown into something that required courage, wisdom, and patience, and yet it was still theirs. One evening, Lyra paused during their work, looking at him seriously. "Aaron, whatever happens, know that I trust you. I trust the man you've become, just as I trusted the boy you were. We will face this together, and we will protect what matters." He felt a warmth in his chest. "I promise," he said. "No matter what comes, I will not fail you. Not now, not ever." And as the city lights reflected in their eyes, a sense of determination settled between them. They were no longer just children making a vow under sunlight. They were partners facing a world full of uncertainty, ready to fight for knowledge, love, and humanity's future. The shadows were closing in, but Aaron and Lyra knew they could face them. They had each other, the strength of human courage, and a promise that had survived time itself. And in that they found hope, a hope that would guide them through the dangers to come. The city felt different that morning. There was a quiet tension in the air, a sense that unseen eyes were watching, waiting for a misstep. Aaron and Lyra had been preparing for this moment for days, knowing that the Observation Council and rival factions were closing in. Yet despite the danger, their bond had grown stronger, built on trust, courage, and the memories of a promise made long ago. Aaron stood by the lab window, looking down at the shimmering city below. The towers sparkled in the morning light, and the rivers reflected 100 colors, but his thoughts were elsewhere. "We need to be ready," he said softly. "They'll come for the colony data sooner or later, and when they do, we can't let them take it." Lyra joined him, her eyes steady and determined. "We have the technology," she said. "We've reinforced the lab, encrypted everything, but it won't be easy. They're powerful and they won't stop until they get what they want." Aaron nodded. "Then we make sure they fail." The first confrontation came that evening. A group of agents, masked and efficient, entered the research center under the cover of darkness. Their movements were precise, almost robotic, as they sought the sensitive files Aaron had brought. Lyra and Aaron were ready. "Now," Aaron whispered. Together they activated a series of holographic decoys, confusing the intruders. Doors slid silently to redirect the agents, while security protocols locked down critical areas. The agents hesitated, momentarily disoriented by the unexpected resistance. Aaron and Lyra moved quickly, using their knowledge of the building to stay one step ahead. In a quiet corridor, Aaron blocked a door while Lyra transferred the most sensitive data to a hidden device. "Almost there," she whispered. "Keep them distracted." Aaron nodded, confronting the lead agent. "You will not take this," he said firmly, standing his ground. His presence alone seemed to slow the intruders, giving Lyra the time she needed. Outside, the city lights shimmered, reflecting the tension inside. Aaron and Lyra's teamwork was flawless. They moved like a single unit, each anticipating the other's actions. In the end, the agents left empty-handed, believing the files had been secured elsewhere. But Aaron and Lyra knew the truth. The knowledge was safe, hidden, and protected. After the confrontation, they returned to the lab, their hearts still racing. "That was too close," Lyra said, breathing heavily. "But we did it. We protected everything." Aaron smiled faintly. "We make a good team." Lyra nodded, her expression softening. "We do, and we trust each other. That makes all the difference." The next few days were filled with preparation. Aaron and Lyra reinforced their defenses, creating multiple layers of security. They tested new communication devices, developed contingency plans, and even trained for possible physical confrontations. Through it all, their bond deepened, not just as partners in work, but as two people connected by history, courage, and the promise they had made decades ago. Yet, the true test came unexpectedly. One afternoon, Lyra's lab received a direct message from a rival faction, threatening to expose her work and take control of the technology. The message was clear: comply or face consequences. Lyra's hands trembled slightly as she read it. "They want everything," she said quietly. "They know about the colony knowledge." Aaron stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We've faced worse," he said firmly. We'll protect what matters, together. That night they planned their response. They could either confront the faction directly, risking exposure, or set a trap to outsmart them. Aaron's mind raced, drawing on his experience from the colony. We set a trap, he said. We let them think they have the advantage, then we turn it around. We have the skills, the knowledge, and the courage to do it. Lyra agreed, and together they devised a plan. Using decoys, encrypted messages, and hidden channels, they lured the rival faction into a controlled area. When the intruders arrived, expecting an easy victory, they were met with a combination of holographic illusions, locked doors, and reinforced security systems. Aaron and Lyra moved silently through the facility, coordinating each action. Their teamwork was seamless, a dance of precision, intelligence, and trust. By the time the faction realized the trap, it was too late. They had been contained without harm, their attempts to seize the technology foiled. Afterward, Aaron and Lyra collapsed into chairs, exhausted but triumphant. We did it, Lyra said, her voice filled with relief. We protected everything. Aaron nodded, looking at her with admiration. We did, and we did it together. That's what matters. The experience brought them even closer. In the quiet moments that followed, they spoke of their childhood, their dreams, and the promise that had guided them through so many challenges. Aaron remembered the boy who had made a vow under sunlight, and Lyra remembered the girl who had trusted him completely. Now, as adults, they understood that the promise was no longer a simple childhood game. It was a commitment to trust, courage, and love. But life was not without its challenges. The Observation Council remained a constant presence, monitoring their activities and testing their defenses. Aaron and Lyra knew that their victories were temporary. They would need to remain vigilant, adaptable, and united. One evening, as they walked along the river, Lyra spoke softly. Do you ever think about what would have happened if we hadn't reunited? Aaron smiled faintly. Every day, he admitted. I wondered if you would forget, if the promise would fade. But now I know that some things cannot be erased. Some bonds survive time, distance, and change. Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting the shimmering lights. I trust you, Aaron. No matter what comes, I trust you. And I believe in what we have and what we promised. Their hands met, fingers intertwining, a silent affirmation of trust, courage, and love. They had faced danger, deception, and uncertainty, and emerged stronger together. The following days were quieter, but the lessons lingered. Aaron and Lyra continued their work, now more cautious, more aware of the stakes. They strengthened their networks, secured sensitive data, and prepared for future challenges. Yet they also allowed themselves moments of joy, laughter, and connection, remembering that life was not only about survival, but also about the bonds that made survival meaningful. One evening, Lyra showed Aaron a view of the stars from the lab's observation deck. Do you remember when we used to sit under the night sky and make promises? She asked softly. Aaron smiled, the memory vivid. I do, and I kept that promise. Even when the world changed, even when everything seemed impossible, I held on to it. Lyra looked at him, her eyes shining. And I held on to it too. We've grown, we've changed, but some things remain. Courage, trust, and love. And now we can face the future together, stronger than ever. Aaron felt a deep sense of peace. The challenges were far from over. But with Lyra by his side, he knew they could face anything. The promise of their childhood had matured into something enduring, a bond that guided them through danger, change, and uncertainty. As the night deepened, the city lights reflected in their eyes, a testament to the world they had both grown up in and the future they would build together. The shadows that had threatened them were still present, but they no longer felt alone. They had each other, and that was enough to face whatever came next. Aaron took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the promise and the strength it gave him. Whatever comes, he said quietly, we face it together, always. Lyra smiled, leaning close. Always, she echoed, and in that moment the world outside, the towers, the rivers, the lights, seemed less intimidating. They had faced tests, survived threats, and proven that their connection was stronger than any challenge. The promise was no longer a memory. It was a living force guiding them into a future filled with hope, courage, and love. The night stretched on, calm and quiet, but both knew that the coming days would bring new trials. Yet for the first time in decades, Aaron felt certain of one thing. Whatever the future held, he and Lyra would face it together, united by trust, courage, and a promise that had survived time itself. The city was alive with light, the towers shining like stars fallen to earth. But beneath the beauty, tension lingered. Aaron and Lyra knew that their challenges were not over. The Observation Council, rival factions, and hidden threats remained, waiting for a chance to strike. Yet for the first time, they faced these dangers not as individuals, but as partners. Aaron stood beside Lyra in the lab, reviewing their final preparations. Their combined work had created a secure system that would protect the colony knowledge and ensure it could be used safely for Earth's benefit. Yet he could feel the weight of the coming confrontation pressing down on him. "Are we ready?" Lyra asked, her voice calm but firm. Aaron nodded. "We have to be. Today is the test of everything we've built, everything we've fought for. We can't let them take it, and we can't let fear guide us." Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder, a small gesture of reassurance. "We face it together, always." The first sign of danger came quickly. Agents from the Observation Council approached the lab, their movements precise and calculated. They had learned of the hidden device that contained the colony knowledge, and they would not leave without it. Aaron and Lyra moved swiftly, activating security protocols and preparing defensive measures. Holographic decoys projected across the lab, sensors monitored every movement, and automated locks secured critical areas. The agents, confident at first, were caught off guard by the unexpected resistance. "You know what to do," Aaron whispered. Lyra nodded, her fingers flying over controls as she managed the devices that kept them safe. The confrontation escalated. Agents attempted to breach the lab, but Aaron anticipated their moves, using his knowledge from the colony to outmaneuver them. Lyra's technical skills complemented his experience perfectly, creating a balance of strategy, intelligence, and teamwork. At one point, an agent broke through a side door. Aaron confronted him directly, using non-lethal force to subdue the intruder while Lyra transferred the remaining data to a secure, hidden location. The process was tense, every second counting. Finally, the agents realized the trap and retreated, leaving the lab empty-handed. Aaron and Lyra had succeeded not through violence, but through intelligence, preparation, and trust. Breathing heavily, Aaron turned to Lyra. "We did it," he said, a mixture of relief and pride in his voice. Lyra smiled, though her eyes reflected the exhaustion of the battle. "We did, and we'll continue to protect it together." The victory was not just physical, it was symbolic. They had proven that promises, trust, and courage could withstand even the greatest threats. The colony knowledge was safe, and they had demonstrated that unity and collaboration were stronger than fear or greed. After the confrontation, they spent quiet moments reflecting on their journey. The promise they had made as children had grown into something far greater, a commitment to each other, to humanity, and to the values that had guided them both. Aaron looked at Lyra, remembering the boy who had made a vow under sunlight, and the man who had returned to keep it. "Do you remember that day?" he asked softly. Lyra's eyes sparkled with memory. "I do. You promised me we would marry one day. I believed you even when life took us far apart." "And now?" Aaron asked. "Now," she said, smiling. "We know that promises can change with time, but the meaning behind them remains. It's not just about words, it's about trust, courage, and love. And I trust you, Aaron." He felt a warmth in his chest, a mixture of joy and relief. "I promise to honor that trust always. Not just for the past, but for the future we will build together." The days that followed were filled with planning, innovation, and collaboration. Aaron and Lyra worked tirelessly, combining Earth's technology with the knowledge he had brought from the colony. Together, they developed sustainable energy systems, advanced communication networks, and security protocols that could protect humanity from future threats. Their efforts were recognized by colleagues and leaders alike. Many were inspired by their teamwork, courage, and dedication. Yet for Aaron and Lyra, the greatest reward was not recognition. It was the bond they had strengthened, the trust they had reinforced, and the promise they had honored. One evening, as they walked through a floating garden above the city, Lyra paused to look at him. "Do you ever think about what might have happened if we hadn't reunited?" she asked. Aaron shook his head. "I try not to, but I know that some connections cannot be broken. Some promises survive time, distance, and change. Ours was always meant to continue." Lyra smiled, taking his hand. "Then let's make it matter. Not just for us, but for the future. For everyone who believes in courage, hope, and love. They stood together in silence for a moment, watching the city lights reflect in the rivers below. The world had changed, but some things remained eternal. Human spirit, trust, and the bonds that connected people across time and space. Later that night, in the quiet of the lab, Aaron and Lyra reflected on their journey. They spoke of childhood memories, dreams they had once shared, and the lessons they had learned along the way. Every challenge, every danger, and every triumph had brought them closer, shaping the promise into something real and enduring. "We've faced so much," Lyra said softly, "but we've survived together, and now the future is ours." Aaron nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "Yes, together." The next morning, they presented their work to the council and the public. Their systems were recognized as groundbreaking, offering solutions for energy, communication, and security. Yet amidst the praise, Aaron and Lyra focused on what mattered most: each other, the promise they had kept, and the lessons they had learned about trust, courage, and humanity. As the crowd dispersed, Aaron took Lyra's hand. "Do you remember the boy who promised to marry you?" he asked, a soft smile on his face. Lyra laughed, the sound full of warmth. "I do, and I remember the girl who believed him. She waited even when life was uncertain, and now she is standing here with the man who kept his word." Aaron felt a surge of emotion. "Then let's honor that promise in every way that matters," Lyra nodded. "We will, not as children but as partners, as equals, as people who understand what it means to trust, to fight, and to hope." The world outside continued to change. Technology advanced, cities grew, and challenges emerged. But Aaron and Lyra knew that together they could face anything. The promise of their childhood had survived, but it had grown into something greater, a bond forged by time, strengthened by trust and illuminated by hope. That night, as they stood on the observation deck looking at the stars above, Aaron and Lyra felt the weight of the universe and the beauty of the world around them. The past and the future met in that moment, and for the first time they felt truly at peace. Aaron squeezed Lyra's hand gently. "Whatever comes next, we face it together, always." Lyra smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "Always," she echoed. And as the city lights shimmered below and the stars glimmered above, they knew that the world had changed. But some things, like trust, courage, and love, were eternal. The promise they had made as children had grown, matured, and endured, guiding them into a future full of hope, adventure, and possibilities. They had faced danger, uncertainty, and change. They had overcome shadows and threats, and through it all they had discovered something timeless: the power of a promise kept, a bond honored, and love that could survive anything. As the night deepened, they held each other close, ready to face the world together. The challenges would continue, but they were no longer afraid. They had each other, the lessons of the past, and the courage to shape a future worth fighting for. And in that knowledge, Aaron and Lyra smiled, knowing that the boyhood promise was no longer just a memory. It was a living, enduring force that would guide them through every challenge, every change, and every new dawn.